everyone, and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Joe Veselak.
And I'm Maddie McCarty.
And the three of us today are going to talk about the 2026 Hyundai Ioniq 9, because that is an EV that we recently bought. In fact, we bought one of the first ones in the state of Connecticut. But it's a sister vehicle, brother vehicle, cousin, if you will, of the Kia EV9. Both are three-row all-electric SUVs. What we found with the EV9, it translates this Hyundai, really great second and third row space.
Yes.
Very accessible, drives really nicely. What we bought was the 2026 Hyundai Ioniq 9 SEL. Well, it has 303 horsepower from dual electric motors, a 110.3 kilowatt hour battery, one-speed direct drive, no real transmission there, and all-wheel drive, standard, on the dual motor version. $66,320 was the MSRP, and we only have a few options. Ultimate red paint for $500, carpeted floor mats for $230, which I got to say, at 66 grand, if they're adding in floor mats for $230, that's kind of cheap in my opinion, but we'll leave that. A cargo cover for $190 with the $1,600 destination fee. Total cost $68,840. Maddie, this is a growing segment. It's got a lot of competitors. Where do you think it falls in? Against whom, which vehicles?
Yeah, so we do have a few. We have like the R1S, the EV9, as you mentioned, Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, the ID Buzz, and a Vistic. And I think this is a pretty solid EV, a three-row EV that you can get. The price is a little, you see the price tag of about $70,000, and it's kind of like, that's a little bit more than I was expecting, but where it falls in line with the rest of them, it is on the cheaper end. So it's all about, I guess, the accessories, the styling, the range. Those are all really important factors. But I think it is a really solid EV that Hyundai has going here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the. It's interesting. It used to be that the Hyundai would come out first, and then Kia would follow, and they flopped it. And I think this makes a better presentation than the Kia.
Yeah.
Joey?
I like the Kia EV9 in terms of styling. Feels a little more for like a younger generation, a little more edgy. And then when you look at the Ioniq 9, it just feels a little more grown up, maybe a little more classy. I understand, like you look at our trim and the color, that kind of adds to it. You know, the red, everything really gies it that vibe. But yeah,
it's nice to finally get a non-silver or white car
into
the fleet, right?
It sticks out. It looks good. It's the color pops.
You were saying in our pre-meeting that one of the biggest issues for you is, with the range, worry about range, electric compared to something like, I mean, the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride are two SUVs that dominate that three-row midsize segment. So
I feel like this is something, I guess my, advice would be if you're looking at the EV or the Ioniq 9 and it's something you're just not ready to commit to, full EV, that, not too far from that is the, the Palisade, Telluride. You're going to have hybrid platforms, so you'll get the efficiency there. But yeah, looking at that as an option. And also going back to competitors that'll be like the Vistic. If you spec that out properly, you can actually get a Vistic around that 70 grand price point. There's a small overlap there from a vehicle like the Cadillac Vistic and the Ioniq 9, depending on how you spec them out.
Yeah. If you go crazy with the options,
you can get. Yeah, you
Well,
can go far on the Vistic and get really expensive.
And just like Maddie, we were talking before the calligraphy trim, and I don't know if I'm putting it in the wrong spot at time, but we rented one from Hyundai early on to do our first drive, which is available on consumerreports.org, and then we also got ours in. But you liked the calligraphy version?
Yes, I did. So our version, the SEL, it has the same like silver plastic elements all around the cabin, but for some reason the addition of the silver like camo type, if you will, addition in the calligraphy, it just brings it all together. I think some people that drove around kind of said it looked spaceshipy inside, which I thought was fun. But the interior of ours, it has more of like a fake wood paneling, which, considering you're paying about $70,000, it kind of feels like it's a little cheaper than something that would be nicer with like maybe real wood paneling or just less of that silvery plastic trim. But overall, I do think it is a nice interior either way. And I don't know I know there's more that comes in the calligraphy than just like the interior styling.
Right.
But 10 grand. It's about 10 grand more than what we paid for. I'm not sure if that would be worth it for me, but perhaps for others.
Yeah, I mean, it has 100 more horsepower, the calligraphy, but this isn't a slow vehicle by any stretch.
It's quite zippy.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would need that extra horsepower.
Right. So why don't we get into one big thing about this is that it's one of the first vehicles we've gotten in our fleet that has the new Tesla style, the NACS, North American Charging Standard charge port as a native, so we have to have an adapter. Would that change your feelings on the electric vehicle, Joe, if you were buying, because now you have access to superchargers?
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah. So once you open up that accessibility to Tesla supercharging, that's going to relieve just in general all those stresses, range anxiety, looking for other chargers, conventional chargers that aren't working, broken down. It seems like Tesla's infrastructure just has much more support and maintenance and everything to, it's definitely a high point for them.
There's so many chargers that are Tesla superchargers or just Tesla chargers in general. And so I think it's a huge selling point too. It's so much easier to plan out. I feel like less anxiety being able to know that there are all these Tesla chargers along the way.
Oh yeah.
And whenever you have them, there's always like 10, 20 of them. So you don't.
And they work.
And they work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I took the Cadillac Optic. We have like every Cadillac EV almost, it seems. I took it up to Massachusetts, the Great Barrington, if people know where it is. It's populated, but the Tesla chargers, to your point, there were 10 here, and then we were down the road, and there were 20 over there, and then to find chargers for this. And the range was great. I didn't need it, but it was one of those things where, okay, if I can charge, it's great. Low speed level 2 charge points. I think I got 25 miles over 3 hours. The cable didn't hook back in. It didn't have a holder, so it was just lying on the ground. And the only high-speed ones were 7 miles away that were not Tesla. But no adapter for the Optic. It takes the CCS. So I'm like, all right, I have to use this. If I had taken the Ioniq 9, I would have been able to plug right in.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. It's even if you have a vehicle with a lot of range, it's still nice to have that option versus being forced into something like that slow speed charge point.
Yeah, or you know what you're going to get for the most part with Tesla. You're not going in blind hoping the charger works or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we kick off? We'll jump in with the interior of the vehicle. Maddie, you have some feelings on the way that the giant screen, the married up screens look and the functionality.
Yeah, so we have two 12.3-inch screens, one for the driver's screen, and then it's kind of seamlessly connected to make it look like one long panoramic screen with the center screen. And then we have another kind of touch capacitive display for the climate controls below that. And so you do have a very kind of screen-heavy layout, but the way that it's designed, it's not as overwhelming, I think, visually as a lot of other vehicles that have huge touch screens. So when you hop in, if you're familiar with other Hyundais and Kias that are recently been on the market, it looks very similar. So you don't immediately think, oh my goodness, I'm in this EV and it's so different from an ICE vehicle, or so I don't know how to use it, but it looks very similar to like the interior of a Santa Fe, for example.
Right.
So all of these screens, they have like kind of large buttons, which are easier to use while you're driving. There's really high contrast. It's very well labeled, and it has a great use of color. Like I said before, the climate screen with its kind of touch capacitive controls is more difficult to use. I don't know if you struggled like I did with like changing the fan speed or like even the seat heaters or just like tiny little buttons.
Yep.
So not great, but at least the temperature dials are there. So that's so much easier.
Yeah, having the knobs is great. I tried in using the voice commands, and it was hit or miss. And that's when the alternative to distracting to look down from the road to do it is voice. That doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a great setup.
Yeah, I think if, I don't know, brought it up a little bit higher, made it easier to actually use those controls while you're driving, it would really elevate the whole thing.
Right.
But I think they did a good job in general. And a lot of like the safety centric things like your windshield wipers and your headlights, those are all still very familiar physical controls and stocks. So people shouldn't have trouble with those. But yeah, as always, I say like hop in it, take it for a drive, try it, and just change your temperature, your fan speed, anything. See how comfortable it is for you.
How was it for you, Joey, using controls?
Yeah, no, I agree with Maddie. Yeah, the bar, touch capacitive bar, yeah, it's just I'm not a big fan of, but I do like the dials and everything there. But I also agree with, having voice activation isn't a workaround for other controls that aren't ideal. But that being said, once you're familiar with the system or have been familiarized with, Kia, Hyundai of the past or current models right now, really easy to get into and become familiar with.
They had the tiles, and I think at one point they initially had tons of icons, so
Yeah.
it's sort of like the Audi way, or, and it's great when there's 75 icons on the screen. You don't have to hunt around, but they're all small. The tiles took a little bit of getting used to, but I think it's it works fairly well. It just keeps putting menus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Deeper.
it has like widgets that you could kind of say of like the navigation if it's equipped, which I think it's standard in this vehicle, and phone and radio. So you shouldn't have to like keep swiping unless you want something that's like something you might not use as often.
Sure.
And you can customize it, which is great.
Right.
And there's even shortcut buttons that have a little star on it, so you can program those to do different things. So it's really you can set it up however you want it to be, so that hopefully you get used to it and you can just use it pretty quickly.
And it's true. Once the workaround for poor integration aside, once you do use it a lot, you do get used to it. I would just like to be able to know a button by touch.
Absolutely.
Versus a surface that I'm hoping I'm not
glancing.
glancing blow.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things we have seen in a number of EVs is because of the lack of a transmission tunnel, because of the lack of a drivetrain tunnel, you have a ton of floor space. And opening it up so you don't feel very cluttered. But there's a drawback.
Yes, a flat floor.
Right.
Which means that if you're like me and you hop into the car and you just throw your things on the passenger seat or on the floor, they could just come rolling over to your side. And we've had people report that this does actually happen, and you have like water bottles that get stuck under pedals or small items. So it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can like rig something up to block things from rolling over, but yeah, I mean, the cost or the benefit of having more space does come at a cost in this case.
Yep.
It looks nice, but there's also that safety concern.
There is a bin there, and it's there's just two-tiered bin, and the upper one is pretty accessible, I think, but the lower one, which is great for if you have those rolling things to throw them in there, but you do want your thing to be accessible. So, or if the passenger's using it, then they put it down at their feet. I know, my wife would ride past, she'll ride in the passenger seat, an umbrella or something like that, and that just can slide.
As soon as you open up that like area or give the passenger access to that, you as a driver just lost all that real estate.
Right.
You just gave, I'd like it to be blocked off from the passenger so I can just use it for myself.
Yeah,
ideally.
it is. I mean, there is more. As a driver, maybe you are carrying more stuff regularly.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice. But the bin is deep and it has a nice lip. It's just really hard to access. And and the depth means, you're going way past it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the second one isn't very usable for me. It's kind of, it's not very tall, I think, the opening. So I kind of just, I think, like shoved the charger adapter there and hope that it stayed there. But there also is like the center console bin.
Right.
Which has like 2 levels to it. And the first level is fine. But then once you open up the second level, it's like a deep, dark abyss.
Yeah. Yep.
So you could definitely lose things in there.
Which you could reach in from the second row to get. So and there is an option. I think the calligraphy we rented had it where there's a bin you could put that can roll out. So you could see the cost savings. Like, okay, we have the one bin, and then you modify it, which is cool. But to your point, it's an abyss.
And it didn't quite function properly. And whether or not we know, I think just getting an early model or getting, whether or not that's happening on all.
The lid on it is kind of cool. Do you want to explain how the lid works on that?
Yeah, so I guess from my recollection, it can fold either it's split in 2 sections and it has 2 buttons on the front, and you can either break away and fold them in one half or the other, as well as it can fold in the other direction from the rearward forward if someone wants to open it from the back seat. But that being said, you really have to press the button down hard and put a little downward pressure. It just feels like fitment or however it's built isn't, isn't correct.
It's awkward to grab. The backside work. I found myself doing this.
Yeah, it felt like it hinged better from the rear seat rather than it did from up front.
And it could just be growing pains. I mean, we have, again, the first model. So did you both were able to use wireless CarPlay or Android Auto?
I use CarPlay. Yeah, wireless CarPlay, and I had no issues.
Okay. I had a lot of problems with it connecting. Yeah. And I've seen that with a lot of Hyundais. And maybe I need my iPhone 12 needs, I need a new one. I need to spend $1,000 more on a phone. So what's really useful is that in the center console, in front of that bin that we're talking about, you can't really open, is a wireless charge pad, and it's almost just where you would put your right hand. So it's super accessible, and it's nice to just plop the phone there, and it's rubberized so it doesn't slide around. But I ended up having to connect it hard to the car.
Yeah, and I use Android Auto, and I connected wirelessly just fine. But I do like that when you plug in a phone to the car, it just does it like instantly. It loads so fast, whereas like other vehicles, you might have to still go through the process of pairing your phone. But this one is just like plug in and go.
Yeah, pops right up.
If the wireless isn't working, at least it's not a huge pain to plug in the phone. But I get that it's like you want to do it wirelessly.
And you get into the, I shouldn't say you get into the situation where they're designing the software for the car at one time, and it's much easier for the phone company to send an update. And I understand it there may be a versioning. I just have seen this so often with Hyundais and Kias with the wireless. It just never seems to work. But enough of that. Joey, why don't you give us your feelings on the vibe of the car, but also talk about that access, talk about that second row space and the third row, because one thing with mid-size SUVs, you just don't really get a useful third row seat.
Yeah, so this being an EV, you have you can have the floor really low, so you're stepping, especially with third row access. This is where it's most noticed, is getting into the third row. Tall roof line, similar to the EV9, as close as you can get kind of to a minivan experience somewhat, as to, you're just kind of stepping up and in. You have much more headroom. There's less ducking. Getting into the second row is a breeze, very easy to get in, especially that flat floor, flush door sills up front, very much the same. You do have a sloping A-pillar, but really you don't even notice it. You naturally kind of just duck through and get in and out. But that is a high point of these cars. Very roomy, very easy to get in and out of. My biggest gripe, and we say it over and over again, it's the pop-out door handles. And
what is it about these versus maybe others? Because
I feel
the
like
Cadillacs have their own unique ones, for example.
Awkward to grab. The experience is just not there. It's trying to be a traditional door handle, as well as just how it feels grabbing it. Then you're relying on the key fob for proximity and logic for someone like me who might leave the key inside all day inside the house and then running out like, oh, I gotta, I know there's other settings where you can have it unlocked and have them popped out, but depending on who's driving, I know our situation's unique where we have multiple drivers, so the settings are usually never in where last had them. So I'm running into that a lot. But that aside, I just, I don't see what's to gain with pop-out door handles. Your efficiency number, drag coefficient, better just, you better be gaining there if you're going to lose in the access department.
Yeah, so these handles are a little bit different than what we've seen very recently with a lot of these types of door handles that pop out, is that they still are like kind of mechanical. They don't have that electric component that opens the door. So you don't have that delay that we see often, but you still have the delay potentially of the handles popping out. And if you live in a colder climate like we do, where we have icy rain, those can get iced over.
Yep.
My issue that I had, and this was when I was driving around a bunch of people, and so I unlocked the door from far away so that they could all hop in before I got there. But by the time we all got there, the car had relocked itself, and as we were putting our hands in the door handles, it started to close. So we had to rip our hands out quite quickly. I don't know if they would have stopped, but they definitely made contact. So that's something that I would know as a driver. Don't unlock it too early. But if you have kids or people who are unfamiliar with the car, that's just something that you have to be aware of with these cars. And I guess to your point, if there's settings to change it, you can do that. but
Yeah.
you have to go through that motion of doing that.
That's interesting. That's the first I've heard of that, and that's awful. I mean, you know, it's shocking at that time. So yeah, that makes it worse than the angled ones that pop out or the delay, like you said, the electric
kinda.
ones.
I mean, it happened once. It could have been a fluke, but it's something that stuck with me. And I'm like, I'm not going
Right.
to mess with these door handles now.
Oh well. Oh. The third row, we talked about how it has actual human size.
Yeah,
it's not just
yeah,
kids.
it's not
I mean,
just-
adult size. Let's say adult, not human. Adult size seats.
Yeah, I'll give you about 45 minutes back there, you know.
Okay.
Right around there. No, it actually has that capability of, you know, hauling an adult-sized person on, you know, a legitimate short trip, let's say, you know, quick.
Like
you know,
dinner?
Yeah, exactly, those situations. And then on top of that, now you just made a bigger third row for your kids if you do have that and utilize it for that. So
And
I'm sure the kids aren't complaining when they get more room back there.
You could move the second row seat forward
Yes,
a little bit, so
tons of-
you could customize the foot room for, or optimize it for both the second and third row occupants.
Yeah, for me, I think I could almost put the second row almost all the way forward, still have enough leg room
That's
to
impressive.
allow maximum leg room for third row.
That is
so
pretty good.
There's a lot of flexibility there.
Like most midsize SUVs, it does come with the expense that third row raised. It can't really hold more than a suitcase and a couple duffel bags or something like that.
If you're going to start prioritizing behind third row luggage cargo, you're going to want to go towards a minivan because that's where it's a game changer and drastically changes, especially on minivans where the third row folds into the floor like a stow and go. That's where you're going to get a lot of cargo space if you're looking to have a full load of passengers as well as a load of cargo.
So we covered the interior. I'm going to flip a little bit on our rundown and jump to Maddie to talk about for the Regen braking. Aside from the charging of an electric vehicle, the Regen braking is another huge aspect of it, just because of energy recapture, et cetera. So
Absolutely.
if you would please go into it and tell us about the Ioniq.
Sure, yeah. So Hyundai and Kia and Genesis, they have Regen braking that's very customizable in terms of you have these paddle shifters that normally you might use for manual transmission, but in this case, it adjusts the Regen level from all the way from an I pedal, so full one pedal driving, all the way down to no Regen. So you'll just coast as you might normally in an ICE vehicle. And in this implementation, you can just very easily just adjust it however you need, because it can take some time getting used to that feeling of letting off the accelerator and kind of feeling that deceleration that just comes naturally from the Regen braking. But I found that in this vehicle, it was very easy to just get adjusted to that and just to kind of find that sweet spot of that Regen level that I really like. And especially when I had a lot of people loaded into the car, I think I had like 6 people, that adds weight. And so that's going to affect how the vehicle actually feels when you're driving. So I felt that it was actually very easy to get used to. I think if you haven't driven an EV before, this one is kind of nice because it feels a lot more like there's less of a learning curve in how to actually drive this with one pedal, or if you want to do different Regen levels. So it's very nice, very customizable in that way.
One of the new things with, I guess, this generation of their electric powertrain, well, let me back up. With the previous ones or older EVs, when you were on the brake, you couldn't adjust the Regen level. So you know,
Right.
using the plus or the minus pad.
Yeah.
Now, while you're braking, you can, you physically pressing the brake. Let me clarify. You could change the
Yeah.
Regen level so that maybe something's coming up, like a traffic light, or you want to move into more one pedal driving. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's one less step that you have to think about. Now you don't have to be like, okay, I need to take my foot off the brake, then do the Regen, and then I can brake again.
Right.
It's a lot more seamless this way.
Yeah, this was a big improvement for me because it feels very intuitive, and it feels as if you're just like cinching down on the actual brake pedal, and it feels much smoother as you like escalate the levels of Regen. Because I do like the paddles, especially. I love the setup for just the adjustability on the fly, and I will go between usually level 0, 1, and 2 and kind of click through those. And now when you can do them under braking, it makes it that much more seamless, and it feels very intuitive. Actually, it's kind of fun because there's somewhat a level of like engagement. And now with EVs, you know, I love sports cars and, you know, manual transmissions. So give me something to play with while I'm driving that's actually useful. And yeah, it adds to the experience, which I like here.
They're also, I mean, they're large paddles. So unlike
They feel good.
you get into the General Motors, you know, in the Honda and the Acura.
Yeah, they're buttons.
Platform, where it's a button, you know, and that's awkward. And some of the GMs are good; they have a 2-step, but this is great with 3 steps plus the full one pedal driving. Do either of you like or dislike one pedal?
It depends on the situation. Like if I'm driving alone, I'll use one pedal because it's kind of like fun, kind of like a game to see like, can I get all the way to the stoplight without pressing the brake? But with people in the car, I tend to turn it off because sometimes it can make people motion sick. That's just personal preference.
Yeah, I do exactly what I just described. Level 0, 1, 2, and 3, and I use the paddles. I rarely ever, only time I entertain one pedal drives when I'm forced to.
For
You
work.
know? Yeah, but for work, yeah, when I'm forced to. But yeah, you know, the certain platforms, Rivian, Tesla,
Right.
you know, where it always is.
It's very strong.
Yes,
Yeah. I do. To your point, Maddie, I find I try it and then I fear that I'm annoying passengers because it is. If you're just driving, you know, you have the brain foot connection, you know what's happening, but they don't, and it is like it can be an aggressive braking for no reason. So it is interesting. Joey, if you want to give us the driving experience, because it's a big 5,000 some odd pound SUV still.
It's big. You feel the weight. That being said, low center of gravity. It has a decent balance. There's not too much body roll with that. You know, the battery down low center of gravity. You know, the steering's fairly responsive. It's, you know, could use more feedback. This is stuff that's very typical of vehicles this size. I feel like it's a nice balance for steering to the ability of the chassis, and pretty good blend. If you're looking for, you know, some sporty driving experience, you've come to the wrong place, but I wouldn't expect anyone to come here with, you know, that in mind.
Yeah. It's a family. It's the family hauler.
It rides really well. Hey, it's got very solid primary ride. Body motions are kept in check. You know, good bump absorption. You do notice some, you know, when you hit some more aggressive, like potholes or, you know, joints in the road, bridge abutments, stuff like that. You'll hear some of those impacts, but that's very typical of a lot of these cars. These EVs are very, very quiet, you know, powertrains, super smooth, super quiet. So when they're that quiet, you tend to hear a lot of the other noises that are, you know, going on normally.
Like tire impact and stuff like
everything
that.
like that. But yeah, it's just, it is a very, very nice experience just for something to hop into. It's a well-rounded, large 3-row.
You mentioned compared to EV9 with motion sickness.
Yeah. So Maddie mentioned motion sickness. That's where my head went to immediately when she was speaking of Regen causing motion sickness. So I believe, you know, we've had history. We heard of in the past some people getting sick in the EV9. And I think it's a blend of, you know, you have the Regen stuff that Maddie's talking about, and also just, you know, the ride, and, you know, there might be some jerkiness. Like you had mentioned, it's different as a passenger. When you're a driver, you know, you already know what's coming because you made that input. As a passenger, you don't. And it's so smooth, it gives an eerie feeling that might make someone sick. You know, there's other factors where what's your visibility, how high, you know, kids can get sick because they can't see out over the belt line.
Sure.
We've heard that time and time again, you know, in other, you know, vehicles of the past, non-EVs.
Oh,
but,
definitely.
But yeah, I can't say I've ever had any of these issues, but yeah, I mean, this is something why you, in general, you always should drive and experience a vehicle before you buy one. But
Maddie, do you have any thoughts on the ride quality, ride comfort?
I enjoyed it. I didn't have any problems with it. I thought it was pretty quiet.
And the 6 people you're carrying?
And
I mean, seriously.
They all enjoyed the ride too. Like even I had full-grown adults in the 3rd row, and they thought it was comfortable. I think overall a very positive experience with this car. Yeah.
Why don't you go into the safety systems?
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
you know,
So Hyundai has their Smart Sense suite, and it comes standard on this Ioniq 9. And so this includes their highway driving assist 2, forward collision warning, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert, AEB with pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane keeping assistant, lane departure warning, lane centering assist, adaptive cruise control, auto lane change, rear occupant alert, and a standard direct driver monitoring system. That is so much.
yeah, it's a word salad.
Yeah, but it's all standard, which is fantastic. And especially the direct driver monitoring system, which is an infrared camera that's pointed at the driver's face so they can monitor their eyes and make sure that they're looking on the road. That being standard is fantastic, because if people are going to be using what we call the active driving assistant, which includes the adaptive cruise control and lane centering assistance at the same time, we want to make sure that they aren't over relying on the system, because these systems aren't 100%.
Sure.
Right. And although the lane centering system in this Ioniq 9 is pretty good, so far it's been able to keep the vehicle centered in the lane. It does swing wide a little bit around curves, but it's kind of pretty confident, I think. Did you have the same experience or similar?
I liked it, except for the auto lane change. I found that it felt like it would launch me to the far lane, and it's disconcerting feeling when you're pulling from the right lane to the left lane and there's a guardrail. I just felt like I had to intervene. I didn't want to trust it.
Yeah. I get that. I think that some people also commented in our logbook that it's kind of a quick lane change, which can give that feeling of kind of going a little bit too much towards the outer edge of the lane before recentering.
Yeah, I've yet to have
Absolutely.
any auto lane change really make me feel comfortable, but I always
Manual
either
lane changer, huh?
Yeah. I like to do that on my own.
I get that.
Yeah.
I think I like the GM implementation. GM has
The Super Cruise.
Cruise. That works well. We're not here to talk about all their products. That works well, and I think I got out of a Super Cruise into this.
So you had a direct comparison.
So I had a direct comparison, and there were a couple times, and traffic's moving, 75, 80 miles an hour, and it just felt like it threw me. And I'm like,
I see.
I don't want to find that out.
Yeah. I think that's totally valid. I mean, you don't have to use it. You can
No,
turn
no.
it off,
Yep.
of course. But it's something, if people like to use it, they can. I like to use it because it's kind of an assurance that there's not someone in my blind spot, because it's not going to go if there's someone in my blind spot. It doesn't mean that someone's not very quickly coming up behind you in your blind spot.
Sure.
But it is just like an extra assurance that I like, but it's not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah. To your point, it's an assistant. It's not a requirement, or it's not a
Yes.
depend on.
Yes, it's not 100% I can just check out of driving.
Yes.
I don't need to check my blind spot thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For the adaptive cruise control, though, I think that really does benefit from the EV nature of just the smoothness of the power delivery and not having to downshift if you need to speed up quickly. So I found it to be pretty smooth, even in stop and go traffic. Still have a lot more testing to do with that, but general first impression, I think it's a solid system.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially when you're dealing with EV platforms, EV powertrains with ACC and stuff like that. It's a very, very smooth experience. Only, which most vehicles have is limitations in aggressive stop and go traffic. When someone slows down really quickly in front of you, then takes off very quickly,
Sure.
there's going to be a little bit of a delay before, or it might not accelerate as fast as you would like to close up that gap. But other than that, it's really, really smooth.
The lack of ping-ponging on the lane centering is just is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yes.
too many where the car is just going like this, and it never seems like it's ready to just be centered.
And you're the whole time, you're just kind of trying to counter steer what it's doing. So
Yep.
that can be an uncomfortable experience.
Right, because you fight the steering
Yeah.
wheel in some brands.
Definitely. But not as much in this one,
Yeah.
which is good.
So overall, solid product, competitive, like so many vehicles today, high price. I mean, it's unfortunate. Where do you guys see that the two models fit? Again, we're talking about the Hyundai Ioniq 9, not as much as the Kia EV9, but like I said early on, it used to be that Hyundai would come out with a product, and then Kia would come out with one a year later, the same version of the same platform, even though they have the whole, we're two companies, it's same engine, same transmission, same size, everything. but it was a little different. It was sporty. Where do you each see them now?
Yeah, this is, I mean, we did speak of this before, you know, and was thinking about it, trying to put my finger on it. And looking on the website, a lot of it's tough. It feels like they're even. It kind of comes to however you spec out, what trim you get, how you spec it out. They can, I mean, I said before, I feel like Kia's just driven towards maybe a younger crowd. I like the Kia styling. Feels a little more edgy that way, where Hyundai comes across maybe a little more conservative in their styling. But in terms of maybe, you know, how they're packaged and like which one is the better or more premium, it's tough because it comes to how you spec them out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah. Maddie?
Yeah, I agree. I think Kia has definitely like risen in terms of like how it looks, the quality and interior. But I do think that like Hyundai has kind of a more elevated design in a way. Not to say that I don't like the Kia design. Hyundais tend to just look a little bit nicer inside, in my opinion. But as Joe was saying, it really does come down to which trim you get. You could get a really high Kia trim that looks very similar to like a lower Hyundai trim. So, it really is just how you customize it, I think.
I like the Ioniq 9, where I dislike the EV6 more. It's a little blockier. It's a little
EV9?
The EV9. Did I
Okay.
say the EV6? I'm sorry. The EV9. It's blockier. It looks like one of those Lego cars, you know, where like I see the shape, but you're using squares to do curves, and it just doesn't work out well. One thing we didn't talk about with the Hyundai is it's called boat tail styling. So
I love it.
it pulls back, which impacts the cargo area, of course. It's much more of a curved opening once you open up the door. But yeah, it has a little more of an elegant, if
It's
you will,
cool.
look. Yeah,
It's definitely
distinctive.
yeah, just as like the EV9 Cube look that you're talking about is distinctive, so is this boat look.
Yep.
But it does, especially we got the color red, which I think looks fantastic on this design.
Yeah.
It's just a nice styling exterior, and the people that I drove around also thought it was very cool. So there's that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Well, we have on consumerreports.org, we have a first drive of that. We also talk a little bit about the calligraphy version that we rented, and it's in test. We should have it online in a few weeks, the full test. So go to consumerreports.org to look up more about the Hyundai Ioniq 9. So now we're going to move to the questions part of the show. As always, send us your video questions, send us your text questions. Go to cr.org/talkingcars to submit them. And if we use your question on the show, you will get one of these t-shirts. Not mine, not Maddie's, but one of these black t-shirts with the Auto Test logo and CR green logo. And you can pretend that you work at Consumer Reports, just like we do when we wear them out in public. But anyway, Terry from Williamsburg, Virginia asks, we keep our vehicles years after the warranty expires and drive less than 7,000 miles a year. I understand hybrids like to be driven a lot, and technically the battery's degradation process begins on day one, whether the vehicle is being used or not. Is buying a hybrid still a better choice over a non-hybrid? Joey,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Few things here. Are you spreading out this 7,000, less than 7,000 miles throughout the year, just looking at that? Are you doing that in one, chunk at one time of the year, and the car's just sitting there and you're not driving it? And that's kind of an issue in itself. But I mean, I think I broke it down, did the math. You like divide, something like that by 52 weeks, 7,000 roughly, you're at 100 and something miles, whatever.
Right.
Over that, you're in a week. And that is a good light usage on a car. And so that's looking at it from that angle. But then now you take into account you're not driving it that much, and you want to either choose a hybrid or non-hybrid within that model. So now you want to look at what's the difference in cost. Are you actually driving it enough, that hybrid enough, to make it worth it? Is the hybrid only $1,500? Is the hybrid version only $1,500 more than the ICE version?
Right.
Or depending, like we just spoke in the podcast, depending on how you spec this out or trim this vehicle out, you can put a large price differential there and make it where you're not driving 7,000 miles a year is not worth it for you to get the hybrid version if, you know, you're getting some ridiculous spec that makes it cost more. You need to just look at how much are you driving and what the efficiency is as well. And you got to see if it's really worth it to get the hybrid, or it might be worth spending less money on the ICE platform since you're not driving it that much. You know, get one that obviously you got to look at fuel economy, make sure it's worth it. And it might be worth just, making your decision based off of that.
Maddie, what do you think about it? Do you have any thoughts on it?
Everything he just said.
Okay.
No, I do agree, though. I think it's fuel economy, if that's really important to you as the consumer, then a hybrid seems like a really good choice. There are different levels of like how good of MPG you might get in a hybrid versus the ICE depending on the brand. So look at difference in size of the vehicle, the brand itself in terms of internal combustion engine versus the hybrid.
Sure.
See how that compares, because it may or may not be worth it.
You know, like what we talked about, John. What we talked about earlier about the different models is I pulled out the 2025 Lexus RX. So the ICE, the internal combustion engine version, like you said, starts at $50,575. There's an RX hybrid, starts at $52,875. Okay, that's, it's not quite, what is it, $2,300 difference, okay? That one, you're going to probably pay off the difference in price in fuel savings over 2-3 years.
Yep.
But if you get the RX 500H F Sport Performance version, which is $66,250, and it is a hybrid, you're not paying off a $16,000 difference very quickly in fuel savings. So that's the type of math that you have to do.
I feel like, and this question comes from a place of efficiency. So he doesn't seem like the person that's going to be like, well, obviously I'm not going to go spec out the hybrid platform or the hybrid version to have like every bell and whistle if I'm keeping in mind like, cost savings.
One of the things that we did a number of years ago, again, it's 15 years ago, and you could find this on consumerreports.org as well, but we looked at how the 2001 Toyota Prius tested back in 2001. And then in 2011, we borrowed a 200,000 mile 2002 Prius, and we did basic maintenance on it, so that was up to snuff. So I think we might have changed the oxygen sensor. We made sure, did oil change and stuff like that. You could see the exact numbers online, but it lost 1 mile per gallon. It was a few tenths of a second slower. The battery lasted so long, and there is a worry. We have a story online that talks about a hybrid battery could be expensive, $7,000.
Yeah, I did the acceleration testing on
Do you
this.
remember
I
doing
remember
that?
this.
Yeah, it just. I mean, it was kind of beat on,
Yeah,
It was an old car.
Yeah, it was good to see it still delivered. It didn't
200,000
matter.
miles.
It delivered,
Yeah.
right? It delivered what it's for.
Yeah.
So and also hybrids, very reliable. I mean, hybrid owners, 83% of them tell us that they would buy them again, and hybrids tend to have much better scores, reliability scores overall. In general, there are specifics, so you're going to have some models, maybe new ones, or maybe it just wasn't a great platform. But case in point, Toyota Prius often top in reliability. So our second question is from Brett from Chicagoland. Brett says, I have a Subaru Solterra EV, an okay car, but a great deal, and was looking at the new RAV4 plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, the new RAV4 PHEV launch announcement, and it got me questioning the value of a PHEV. Subaru suggests I only charge if below 30 to 40%. I try to do so, though I charge it to 100%, which I understand may not be ideal, because it reduces battery life. But for a PHEV, it feels like to get the value of the electric miles, you need to charge it almost every day, given it only has 35 to 40 miles in it. But by forcing everyday charging, aren't you lowering battery life? So for this question, we're going to enlist Michael Crossan, who you may have seen on the podcast. He is one of our technicians, and he's an expert in electric vehicles. So Mike?
So Brett, great question. You are right. They do recommend not fully charging or fully depleting electric vehicle batteries. When it comes to a plug-in hybrid, though, the SOC, the state of charge, is a little bit more tightly controlled. What I mean by that is 100% is not actually 100% and 0 is not 0. So when you use up your EV range in a plug-in hybrid vehicle, you still have a decent amount of that battery pack SOC available because the vehicle will operate like a regular old hybrid. Gas engine is going to shut off at stoplights, you'll pull away on electric power, it will then kick on the gas engine as needed. So you're not taxing that plug-in hybrid battery quite the same way you would be on a fully electric vehicle. So I would say to get the most out of your plug-in hybrid, charge it all the way up and use those EV miles. Keep in mind, they are more efficient in around town speeds. So if your trip is within whatever your plug-in hybrid electric vehicle range is, go ahead and use full electricity for that. But if you're going to be out on the highway going further than the PHEV range you have, keep that electric range for in town and use the gas on the highway where it is more efficient.
Okay, so thanks, Mike, very much for that answer. Do you guys have any thoughts on the question?
No, I'm trust Mike to answer it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Resident expert.
So that's going to do it for this episode. As always, check out the show notes below for links on everything that we talked about in this episode, and send us your questions to cr.org/talkingcars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.